You know that feeling, right? That little jolt of panic when your banking app is down and rent is due, or when your company's cloud drive just disappears on the day of a massive deadline. Well, what you're really feeling is the failure of a very specific and honestly, a very expensive promise. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on the hidden contract that keeps our digital world online, the service level agreement.
All right, let's start with a problem we've all experienced. That moment of just pure frustration when a service you completely depend on simply vanishes into thin air.
For us, it's a pain. It's annoying, for sure. But for the businesses, the hospitals, even the governments that are running on these cloud services, an outage isn't just an annoyance, it's a full-blown crisis. The fallout from this stuff ripples out way, way beyond just an error message on your screen. And the damage really comes in three distinct flavors. First, you've got the obvious one, direct financial loss. Every single second the service is offline, money is being lost. Second, there's the damage to their reputation, which can stick around for years as customers start losing trust. And finally, and this is a huge one, you can have serious legal and compliance problems, especially if sensitive data is involved. And we are not talking about chump change here. A 2023 report from the Uptime Institute found that for a whopping 70% of businesses, a single outage costs more than $100,000. Just think about that for a second. One bad hour can literally cost $100,000. Now that's a powerful reason to make sure things stay online. So with that kind of cash on the line, how do these big organizations protect themselves? Well, they don't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. Nope. They get a promise in writing. And that promise has a name. It's called a service level agreement, or an SLA. The best way to think about it is like an official rulebook. It's a formal contract that defines exactly what the service is, how you're going to measure its performance, and, this is the really important part, it spells out the penalties if the provider doesn't deliver. You know, the whole point of this thing is to leave zero room for arguments. An SLA basically forces everybody to agree on four things: who's responsible for what, exactly what the service is, which cuts down on misunderstandings, and finally, it creates a totally objective, data-driven way to prove whether or not that promise is actually being kept. Okay, so let's pop the hood on one of these things. What are the key parts that actually make an SLA, well, work? Well, the very first, most crucial step is creating a shared language for disaster. The SLA has to define how bad a problem is. Is it just a minor annoyance, what they might call non-business critical? Or is it a fatal failure, where the entire system is down and the business has literally ground to a halt? See, before you can even start fixing a problem, everyone has to agree on how bad it really is. So once you have that shared language, the first big promise is made. How fast are you going to respond? As you can see in this table, for the worst-case scenario, a business-critical, fatal issue, the provider is on the hook to get to work within 60 minutes. The second that alert goes out, a clock starts ticking. But this is where it gets really interesting. It's not just about picking up the phone. It's about actually fixing the problem. For that same fatal issue, the provider has just 6 hours to resolve it. And if they don't, well, look at that last column. The contract kicks in with a penalty. In this case, 5,000 Sri Lankan rupees for every single hour of delay. This is where the promise gets its teeth. So that was a pretty standard corporate SLA. But what happens when the stakes are even higher? When it's not just one company's database, but an entire nation's digital infrastructure that's on the line? Our second source document takes us right inside the high-stakes process for building the Lanka government cloud. And as you can probably imagine, building the digital backbone for an entire country is a way more complex job. And yeah, it demands a much, much stronger guarantee. And this table just lays out the evolution perfectly. The modern government SLA brings in a strict 99.9% monthly uptime guarantee, something that first example didn't even mention. And just look at the response times. They get cut in half, from 60 minutes down to just 30. Resolution time slashed from 6 hours to 4. The expectations here are just worlds apart. And the demands go so far beyond just speed. The government has a whole laundry list of requirements. Vendors have to have elite security certifications, like ISO 27001. That's the global gold standard. They have to run 24/7 monitoring centers and prove they've handled huge projects before. It's not just about promising to fix things when they break. It's about proving you have the chops to stop them from breaking in the first place. So, okay, we've seen the tables, the penalties, the certifications, but why does any of this dense technical fine print actually matter to us?
Because this is the key takeaway. SLAs, they aren't just boring legal paperwork. They are literally the hidden architecture of our digital lives. They are the exact place where risk gets negotiated, where a phrase like good enough gets a hard number attached to it, and where the price of failure is spelled out, clear as day, in dollars and cents. So the next time your favorite app or your online bank or your work platform goes down, just remember what's happening behind the scenes. Somewhere, an alarm is sounded, a clock has started ticking, and a very specific, very expensive promise is being put to the test. And really, it's the power of that promise that ultimately gets our digital world back online.